The vast Imperial warship hung in space like a metal predator, its hull reflecting the distant light of the small blue planet below. Admiral Krant stood on the bridge, his forearms clasped behind his back as he stared at the viewscreen. Earth, such an unimpressive name for a world that would soon join the countless others under Imperial rule. Primitive species, Admiral, said Officer Dorn, scrolling through data on his screen. Only achieved spaceflight in their last century, limited to their own solar system, no unified government, multiple languages and territories. Admiral Krant nodded. The Emperor's orders are clear. This sector is rich in resources we need. These, humans, are merely in the way. The Empire had conquered 300 star systems over the past 200 years. Not once had they failed. Their technology was superior, their military tactics perfected through countless victories. The humans would be just another footnote in their glorious expansion. Prepare the standard communication, Krant ordered. Inform them of their options. The Imperial protocol was always the same. Offer the chance to surrender and serve, or face complete destruction. Most species chose wisely after seeing the might of the Imperial fleet. Those who resisted were made examples of. Hours later, the humans responded with a request for a direct meeting. This was unusual but not unheard of. Admiral Krant agreed, allowing a small human shuttle to dock with the Imperial flagship. The human delegation consisted of 3 individuals: an older male with white hair, a dark-skinned female with a stern expression, and a younger male who appeared to be a technical advisor. They wore simple blue uniforms without excessive decorations or weapons. "I am Admiral Krant of the Galactic Imperial Fleet," he announced as they entered the meeting chamber. "You understand why we are here." The white-haired man nodded. "I am Representative Wilson of Earth's United Council. We received your message demanding our surrender." "Then you know your choices," Krant said. "Join the Empire as a subject world, or be removed from our path. The Emperor is generous to those who serve willingly." The 3 humans exchanged glances. Then Wilson spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "We must decline both options, Admiral." A ripple of surprise moved through the Imperial officers present. This was not the expected response. "Perhaps you misunderstand," Krant said. "This is not a negotiation. Look at your planet, then look at our fleet. You have no space navy to speak of. Your weapons are primitive. Your cities are unshielded." The female human stepped forward. "We understand perfectly, Admiral. We also understand that you don't understand us. Humanity does not surrender easily." "Then you choose destruction," Krant stated flatly. "No," Wilson replied. "We are offering you a choice that isn't on your list. Leave our system now. Return to your empire. Tell your Emperor that Earth wishes to be left alone." Laughter broke out among the Imperial officers. Admiral Krant himself could not help but be amused by such boldness. "And why would we do that?" he asked. The younger human spoke for the first time. "Because we're warning you. For your own good." Admiral Krant's amusement turned to anger. "You dare threaten the Imperial fleet." "Not a threat," Wilson said quietly. "A warning. Humanity has spent most of its history fighting itself. We know war better than peace. We don't want to fight you, but we will if forced. And once we start," he paused, "we won't stop until it's finished." The Admiral signaled to his guards. "This meeting is over. Return to your planet and prepare your people. You have 3 days to reconsider before we begin our attack." As the humans were escorted out, the female turned back. "We warned you to run, Admiral. Remember that when the time comes." Krant watched them leave, then turned to his second-in-command. "Begin preparations for planetary assault. These humans will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." How wrong he was. 3 days passed quickly. On the Imperial command ship, High Commander Trell arrived from the core worlds to oversee the conquest personally. A tall, thin being with pale blue skin, he had led 17 successful planetary subjugations. Earth would be his 18th. "Admiral Krant, Report on the human response," Trell demanded as he entered the bridge. Krantz stood at attention. "They have not surrendered, Commander. Instead, they'd been evacuating their major cities and moving military assets." "Predictable," Trell said with a dismissive wave. "They hope to preserve some fighting force for resistance. It never works." He turned to the tactical display, showing Earth rotating slowly. "Their technology. Primitive, sir. Their most advanced weapons use chemical propellants or basic nuclear fission. Their spacecraft are slow and fragile. No energy shields. No faster-than-light capability." Trell nodded, pleased. "Then this will be simple. Begin the standard approach." The Imperial fleet moved into position. 500 warships spread out to surround the planet. Their plan followed the Empire's tested formula. Destroy military bases first, then government centers, then infrastructure. Break the planet's will to resist before ground forces secured the valuable territories. "Sir," said a young officer named Lin, "intelligence has noted something unusual in human historical records." "Speak," Trell commanded, though his attention remained on deployment orders. "Humans fight differently than other species we've encountered. Their entire history is filled with warfare against themselves. They've developed thousands of different military doctrines instead of following a single unified approach, and they adapt extremely quickly." Trell finally looked at the officer. "Your point. Perhaps we should study them more before attacking. Science Director Mira has expressed concerns about." "Director Mira worries too much," Trell interrupted. "All species have internal conflicts before achieving unity. What matters is their current capability, which presents no threat to us." The first wave of attacks began at dawn over the continent called North America. Imperial ships fired energy weapons at military bases, expecting minimal resistance. The humans launched primitive fighter aircraft and missiles, which the Imperial shields easily deflected. "As expected," Trell said, watching the displays. "They fight bravely, but ineffectively." Admiral Krant nodded, but something bothered him. "The resistance seems coordinated, sir, almost as if they anticipated our attack pattern." "Coincidence," Trell dismissed. "Prepare the second wave." In the science bay, Director Mira studied human communications with growing concern. A small four-armed being with metallic skin, she had built her career on understanding alien psychology. "They're not panicking," she muttered to her assistant. "Any other species we've attacked showed fear, confusion, desperation in their communications. These humans sound determined, almost calm." Her assistant pointed to a data stream. "Look at their information networks. They're sharing battle data globally, analyzing our weapons in real time." Mira hurried to the bridge. "Commander Trell, I must speak with you." Trell frowned at the interruption. "What is it, Director?" "The humans are learning from each engagement. Their response time is improving with each attack, and their communication suggests they expected this assault." "They are losing badly," Trell countered. "We've destroyed 60% of their military capabilities with minimal losses." As if to prove his point, the display showed another human base erupting in flames as Imperial weapons struck it. "That's what concerns me," Mira insisted. "They're not trying to win these initial battles. They're sacrificing positions to gather data on our capabilities." Admiral Krant looked troubled. "The human representatives did warn us." "A bluff," Trell said firmly. "Continue the attack. By tomorrow, they will beg for mercy." Just then, an alert sounded. A junior officer looked up in confusion. "Sir, we've lost contact with the rear supply ships at the edge of the system." Trell frowned. "Mechanical failure. Check the communication relays." "All relays are functioning, sir." The ships simply disappeared. The first sign that perhaps the humans knew something the Empire didn't. "Impossible." Commander Trell slammed his fist on the command console. "How could we lose 15 supply ships in one day?" The bridge of the Imperial flagship buzzed with nervous activity. Officers exchanged worried glances as more reports came in. 3 days into what should have been a simple conquest, things were not going according to plan. Another communication blackout in Sector 7, reported Officer Dorn. And the ground forces in the region called Europe have lost contact with their command units. Admiral Krantz studied the tactical display with growing concern. The pattern was clear, but made no sense. They're targeting our communication network and supply lines instead of engaging our warships directly. A delay tactic, Trell insisted, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. They hope to buy time while they prepare a proper defense. Science Director Mira entered the bridge again, her face grim. Commander, I've analyzed the debris from our destroyed ships. They were hit with weapons using our own technology, but modified. That's not possible, Trell said. They couldn't have reverse-engineered our weapons so quickly. The evidence suggests otherwise, Mira replied. The humans are adapting at an unprecedented rate. They're not fighting according to any pattern we've seen before. On the screens around them, the situation continued to deteriorate. Imperial ground forces reported ambushes by human fighters who appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished again. They didn't hold territory or attack in large formations as expected. Instead, they focused on stealing equipment, capturing officers, and disrupting supply lines. Where is their main army? Trell demanded. Why won't they face us directly? Because they're smarter than that, Admiral Krantz said quietly. They know they can't win a direct confrontation yet, so they're not giving us one. A junior officer approached with a datapad. Sir, we've captured human communications. They're sharing detailed schematics of our ship's weak points across their global network. Trell took the pad and stared at it in disbelief. The humans had identified vulnerability points in Imperial ship designs that had taken engineers years to perfect. They were adapting Imperial technology and improving it in ways the Empire's own scientists hadn't considered. We need to change tactics, Admiral Krantz suggested. Perhaps focus on their civilian centers to force surrender. Before Trell could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. The tactical display showed multiple small craft approaching the flagship at high speed. Human attack vessels, Dorn reported. Unusual configuration. They appear to be modified from our own destroyed fighters. Impossible, Trell whispered again, but with less conviction. The human ships moved in patterns no Imperial pilot would attempt, high-risk maneuvers that put their vessels under tremendous stress. They dodged energy blasts with seemingly impossible precision. They're piloting manually, an officer exclaimed in shock. No automated systems, pure human reflexes. The first explosion rocked the flagship as a human vessel sacrificed itself to deliver a powerful strike to the shield generators. More followed, each targeting critical systems with surgical precision. Retreat to defensive position, Trell ordered, his earlier arrogance gone. Regroup the fleet. But the retreat order faced a new problem. Imperial ships were discovering their navigation systems compromised. Some jumped to random coordinates. Others couldn't jump at all. In the command bunker deep beneath what remained of the human military headquarters, General Reed watched the battle unfold on screens powered by salvage Imperial technology. Phase 1 complete, his lieutenant reported. Their supply lines are disrupted, and their communication network is compromised. Our reverse-engineered weapons are deployed to all resistance cells. Reed nodded. Begin Phase 2. Let's show the Empire what happens when you corner a species that spent its entire history perfecting the art of war. On the Imperial flagship, Commander Trell watched in growing horror as his carefully organized invasion crumbled into chaos. The humans weren't just resisting. They were taking the fight to the Empire in ways no one had anticipated. Perhaps, Admiral Krantz said quietly, we should have heeded their warning. 2 weeks into the war, Science Director Mira worked tirelessly in her laboratory. Around her, screens displayed human battle tactics from throughout their history. Mira had never seen anything like it. Where most species developed 1 or 2 effective military strategies and refined them over generations, humans had created thousands. desert warfare, mountain warfare, urban combat, jungle operations, Arctic survival, guerrilla tactics, naval strategies, aerial dogfighting, space combat simulations, she mumbled, scrolling through the information. They've been preparing for every possible scenario for centuries against themselves. Her assistant entered with fresh data. Director, you need to see this. The humans have fully reverse-engineered our energy shield technology. Mira examined the report with growing alarm. This should have taken them decades, not days. There's more, the assistant continued. They're not just copying our technology, they're improving it. Their versions use less power and adapt faster to attacks. On the bridge of what remained of the Imperial flagship, Commander Trell faced a situation no Imperial officer had experienced in 300 years. Defeat. Half the invasion fleet was damaged or destroyed. Ground forces were cut off and surrounded. Supply ships couldn't reach the battle zone. The Emperor demands an explanation, Admiral Krantz said, returning from the communication chamber. He cannot believe we are losing to primitives. Trell stared at the tactical display. Because they aren't primitives. We misunderstood them completely. A nearby explosion rocked the ship. The humans had formed their own space navy in mere weeks, combining salvaged Imperial technology with their own innovative designs. Their ships were smaller but faster, sacrificing armor for maneuverability. Another unique aspect of human warfare, Mira explained, joining them on the bridge. Their commanders give significant freedom to field officers and even regular soldiers. They call it mission command. Focus on objectives, not strict procedures. That's chaos, not strategy, Trell argued. It's adaptation, Mira countered. Their ships operate independently when communications fail. Their soldiers make decisions without waiting for orders. When we cut off their leadership, they don't collapse. They become more dangerous. The tactical officer interrupted. Sir, intercepted human communications. They're unusual. Explain, Krant demanded. They're joking, sir, in the middle of battle, making humorous comments about our weapons, sharing battle stories, even creating memes about Imperial officers. Mira nodded as if she expected this. I've been studying their psychology. Where our species evolved through stability and cooperation, humans evolved through constant competition and adaptation. Their shorter lifespans meant faster generational learning. And the humor? Krant asked. It serves multiple purposes: stress relief, bonding, and maintaining morale. They find excitement in warfare that our soldiers don't. Imperial troops fight because they must. Humans fight with creativity and even joy in the challenge. Another blast hit the ship. The lights flickered. We need to withdraw, Admiral Krantz suggested. Regroup and return with a larger force. Trell hesitated. No Imperial commander had ever retreated. It wasn't in their doctrine. Through the viewport, they watched a small human fighter zip between two Imperial cruisers, drawing their fire toward each other. The maneuver was reckless, dangerous, and brilliantly effective. Their pilots take risks no rational being would consider, an officer noted with a mixture of horror and admiration. Mira stepped closer to the viewport. That's what makes them different. When faced with superior force, most species surrender to preserve their civilization. Humans do the opposite. They become more determined, more creative, more willing to sacrifice. A communication officer looked up from his station. Sir, we're receiving a message from the human command. Display it, Trell ordered. The screen showed General Reed, his uniform bearing marks of battle, but his expression calm and confident. This is your final opportunity to withdraw from Earth space, he stated simply. You came expecting an easy victory. You found something else entirely. Trell's 4 hands clenched into fists. And if we refuse? Reed's expression didn't change. Then you'll learn why we warned you to run. The transmission ended, leaving the Imperial officers in silence as another volley of human attacks began. Their empire, undefeated for centuries, now faced a species unlike any they had encountered before, one that thrived in the very chaos of war they had brought to Earth. 6 months into the war, the unthinkable had happened. The mighty Imperial fleet, conqueror of 300 worlds, was in retreat. Commander Trell stood before a holographic display of the solar system, watching as human forces pushed Imperial ships beyond the orbit of Mars. "How could we have been so wrong?" he whispered. Admiral Krant, his uniform no longer pristine, pointed to the display. "They've unified their entire planet against us. Every factory, every laboratory, every resource dedicated to the war effort." The Imperial warship shuddered as it accelerated away from Earth. Behind them, a flotilla of human vessels followed. Not too close, but close enough to ensure the Imperial forces couldn't regroup. "Status report," Trell demanded. A tired officer looked up from her console. 17 capital ships lost, 32 damaged beyond repair. Ground forces completely cut off or captured. No supply lines remain intact. In the 6 months since the invasion began, the humans had achieved what the Empire thought impossible. They had reverse-engineered Imperial technology, adapted it to their own purposes, and begun producing weapons that could challenge the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. "The Emperor is displeased," Admiral Krant said carefully. "He demands we hold the outer planets of this system at all costs." Trell laughed bitterly. "With what? Our remaining ships are damaged. Our crews exhausted." On the main screen, a transmission from Earth appeared. General Reed sat at a simple desk, maps and plans visible behind him. "Commander Trell," Reed acknowledged, "I see you're withdrawing to the gas giants. A logical move, but unnecessary. We're offering terms." Trell's eyes widened. "Terms? You presume to offer terms to the Empire?" Reed smiled slightly. "We're being practical. You can leave this system peacefully, or we can continue destroying your fleet piece by piece. The choice is yours." Before Trell could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. New contacts appeared on the tactical display. Human ships emerging from behind Jupiter's moons. "Impossible," Trell shouted. "They couldn't have reached the outer planets so quickly." "Sir," a young officer reported, "these vessels are different. They appear to have functional faster-than-light drives." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Humanity had not only adapted Imperial technology, they had improved it, creating FTL drives more efficient than the Empire's own. "We must retreat beyond this system," Admiral Krant urged. "Regroup at the nearest Imperial outpost." Trell hesitated. Retreat meant disgrace, meant admitting defeat, meant facing the Emperor's wrath. Another explosion rocked the ship as human vessels opened fire. Their weapons were no longer the primitive missiles from the war's beginning. They now wielded energy cannons based on Imperial designs, but refined with human ingenuity. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving transmissions from the colony worlds in nearby systems." "Display them," Trell ordered, grateful for any distraction. The screen filled with images of chaos, Imperial colonies under attack, subjugated alien species rising up against their rulers, and among them, human ships, providing weapons and support. "They're not just defending their world," Science Director Mira said, entering the bridge. "They're liberating others, spreading their ideas about freedom and self-determination." Admiral Krant watched as another Imperial cruiser exploded under concentrated human fire. "They fight like no species we've encountered, not just with technology, but with ideology." The final blow came as reports arrived from the Imperial capital. Outer worlds, hearing of the Empire's defeat at Earth, were declaring independence. The rigid hierarchy that had maintained control for centuries was beginning to crack. "Full retreat," Trell finally ordered, his voice hollow. "Send word to all Imperial forces in this sector. Withdraw to the central systems." As the damaged flagship limped away from the solar system, Trell remembered the human representative's warning from their first meeting. "We warned you to run." Now they were running indeed, not just from Earth, but from the consequences of underestimating humanity. For the first time in centuries, the Empire faced not just a military defeat, but an existential threat. And the humans were just getting started. The imperial capital world of Taurus Prime buzzed with panic. In the Grand Imperial Palace, with its towering crystal spires and gravity-defying architecture, Emperor Valk paced before his assembled advisors. His ceremonial robes, typically immaculate, showed signs of neglect, a visible symbol of an empire in crisis. A single primitive world, Valk snarled, has pushed back the mightiest military force in the galaxy. Explain this failure. None dared speak until Science Director Mira stepped forward. Having returned from the front lines, she alone seemed calm amid the chaos. Emperor, I've consulted our ancient archives. This isn't the first time we encountered Earth. The room fell silent. Explain, Valk demanded. Mira activated a holographic display showing records from thousands of years earlier. Scout missions visited Earth during their early development. The reports categorized humans as potentially dangerous, recommend quarantine. This warning was ignored during our expansion era. Why dangerous? Asked the council member. They were even more primitive then. The scouts noted unusual patterns, Mira explained. While most species evolved through cooperation, humans advanced through competition. They were observed to unite instantly against outside threats, while maintaining internal divisions that drove innovation. Emperor Valk dismissed this with a wave. Ancient history doesn't explain our current failure. Admiral Krant, now bearing the shame of defeat, spoke carefully. The humans don't fight like us, Emperor. They don't follow the military doctrines that have defined warfare for millennia. On the display, footage showed human ships using tactics no Imperial captain would consider, diving through debris fields, using solar flares as cover, sacrificing shields to deliver devastating attacks. Our military academies teach strategies perfected over centuries, Krant continued. Humans have thousands of different approaches, constantly evolving. When one fails, they discard it and try another without hesitation. The reports from across the galaxy grew worse daily. Human ships had been spotted in 10 neighboring systems. Imperial colonies were declaring independence. Subject species were revolting, many wielding weapons of human design. They've turned our outer worlds against us, a minister wailed, spreading dangerous ideas about self-governance and independence. Mira nodded. This is what makes them truly dangerous, not just their adaptability in warfare, but their ideological flexibility. They've had thousands of different forms of government throughout their history, while we've maintained the same system for millennia. Outside the palace, the sounds of unrest grew louder. Even on Taurus Prime, whispers of reform spread through the population. The Empire has stood for 10,000 years, Emperor Valk declared. It will not fall to barbarians. With respect, Admiral Krant said quietly, it already is falling. The tactical display confirmed his words. Human forces, now joined by liberated alien allies, were advancing through Imperial space at an alarming rate. Their ships moved faster, hit harder, and adapted more quickly than Imperial vessels. Their communication systems remained unbreakable. Most disturbing were reports about captured Imperial soldiers. Instead of the torture or execution common in Imperial practice, humans treated prisoners with startling decency, offering medical care, fair treatment, and even the option to return home. This unexpected mercy proved more effective at breaking Imperial morale than any cruelty. Our entire military structure is based on rigid hierarchy and absolute obedience, Mira explained. Humans delegate authority to the lowest levels. When we destroy their command centers, their forces keep fighting effectively. When they target our leadership, our entire system collapses. A messenger burst into the chamber, forgetting protocols in his panic. Emperor, human ships have been detected entering the core systems. Emperor Valk sank onto his throne. The unthinkable had happened. War was coming to Taurus Prime itself. How did we fail so completely? He whispered. Science Director Mira looked at the tactical display showing the human advance. We misunderstood them from the beginning. We thought war was an extension of politics. They treat it as an art form, with each battle a canvas for innovation. And now, Vok asked. Now we learn what humans do after victory, Mira said quietly. Whether they conquer as we did, or something else entirely. The Imperial Palace on Taurus Prime had never seen aliens in its central chamber. For 10,000 years, only the Emperor and his highest officials had walked on its luminescent crystal floor. Now, 3 humans stood before Emperor Vok. Their simple uniforms contrasted sharply with the ornate surroundings. General Reed, Admiral Mason, and Dr. Collins represented Earth and its growing alliance of liberated worlds. Behind them stood representatives from a dozen former Imperial subject species, beings who had known only oppression for generations. Emperor Vok sat rigidly on his throne. His empire, once spanning hundreds of systems, had collapsed in under 2 years. The humans had accomplished what no species had even attempted. They had broken Imperial power completely. We expected execution, Vok said finally, breaking the tense silence. That is what the Empire would have done to defeated enemies. General Reed shook his head. That's not why we're here. The human delegation moved forward, carrying not weapons but data tablets. Dr. Collins, a tall woman with graying hair, spoke first. We've studied your history, Emperor. Your empire began with noble intentions, bringing stability to a chaotic region of space. Somewhere along the way, stability became stagnation. Order became oppression. Admiral Mason continued, we didn't fight this war to destroy you, but to stop your expansion. What we offer today isn't surrender terms, but a new beginning. The tablets activated, displaying a complex network of connections between worlds. Not a hierarchy with Taurus Prime at the center, but an interconnected web. A galactic council, General Reed explained. Each world with its own voice, independent but united for common goals. Trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense. Emperor Vok's eyes narrowed. And the humans would lead this council, I assume. Replace our empire with your own. No, Reed answered firmly. Earth would have one vote, the same as any world, including Taurus Prime. The alien representatives behind the humans moved forward, each speaking of their vision for their newly freed worlds. Some had already begun forming their own governments, inspired by Earth's diverse political systems. Why? Emperor Vok asked, genuine confusion in his voice. You've won. You could take everything. Dr. Collins smiled gently. Because that's not who we want to be. Humanity's history is filled with empires that rose and fell. We've learned that true strength comes not from control, but from cooperation. We fought because we had to, General Reed added, not because we wanted to conquer you. War is our worst instinct, but also the forge that tempered us. We warned you to run, Admiral Mason said, not out of arrogance, but because we know what we become when threatened. Outside the palace, the capital city was transforming. Where once only imperial designs were permitted, new architecture and art appeared. Markets filled with goods from across the galaxy. Former imperial citizens mingled with species they had once conquered, discovering common ground. Your species makes no sense, Vok said after studying the proposal. You excel at war yet offer peace. You defeat us utterly, then extend partnership. That's humanity's greatest paradox, Dr. Collins explained. Our capacity for violence is matched only by our capacity for compassion. We can be your worst enemy or your strongest ally. Emperor Vok stood slowly from his throne, a symbolic gesture no human could fully appreciate. For the first time in imperial history, an emperor descended to stand level with others. I accept your terms, he said simply. 1 month later, representatives from 200 worlds gathered in the newly renamed council chambers. The former imperial palace now hosted delegates from every known spacefaring species. At the center stood the signing table where the Galactic Charter would be ratified. Science Director Mira watched from the side as Emperor Valk and General Reed signed the document together. "They're remarkable," she said to Admiral Krant, who had been permitted to retain his position in the new Imperial Defense Force. "Yes," Krant agreed. "The historians have already added a new saying to our diplomatic manuals. When humans offer friendship, accept gladly. When humans warn you to run, run." As the new Galactic Council took its first steps, a message was transmitted to every world in known space. A new era begins today, not of conquest, but of cooperation. Not of subjugation, but of sovereignty. The stars belong to all of us.